And once I started unhooking my identity and how I was trading time in the world, that's when anything became possible to me. That abundance mindset actually flowed pretty easily. But as long as I put that label on myself, gave myself that identity, it was hard. I felt restricted.
Welcome to another episode of The Rooted Founder. Today we're going to be talking about playing the game of business, playing the game of real estate, what the objectives are, how to play the game, and how to win. And I'm excited for this conversation because the guest I have on today, Whitney, she has a portfolio of over 800 million and 6,500 plus residential units, car washes, self-storage, so many things. We can get into all of the highlight reels of her success and also her formulas and methodologies for achieving that and helping other people achieve that. So we're going to have a casual conversation like I always do and talk about how we can win with money, time, and location freedom, but how we can also preserve our joy, peace, and love in the process. So Whitney, excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Staci. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun. So I want to start off with just a little bit about your origin story. And to do that, I want to ask, at what point did you realize that you needed to get into investing in order to achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Ooh, so I had to learn this lesson several different times, over the course of my career. But, I started off in 2002. I bought a house with a significant other. And then about a month later, the relationship fell apart and I had a house. That was my foray into real estate. And so initially I was like, oh, I'm going to buy a house, live in the house, and then sell it, like 20, 30 years later or whatever, and make some money. But at that point in time, I was like, wait a second, I have a responsibility for all these bills, mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, all the utilities. And that was not the plan. And so stuffed that thing full of roommates, people that didn't mind living in a construction zone. I, borrowed some money from my grandparents so I could secure a second loan on the property and start performing the rehab on the property. 11 months later, I exit that property, thinking that I'm getting rid of a house that is going to financially drown me. And as I'm preparing my taxes, that's when I went, wait a second. Not only did I put a $52,000 check in my pocket, I actually haven't been paying for anything the last 12 months. And oh, by the way, that $52,000, because of the 121 exclusion and a couple boxes I was able to check on my tax return, came to me tax-free. I went, what? Hey, okay, cool. Let's do this again. And the next time didn't go so hot. So when did I first learn the lesson? It was that transaction in 2002. Then I tried to repeat the success, but entirely different real estate environment. I mean, we're starting to see the cracks in the lending system back in 2006. Next deal didn't go nearly as well. But then after we kind of get through that initial downturn, then I started living, flipping, house hacking. And I was like, okay, I'm really good at building up buckets of equity, but that's not going to get me out of my job. I want financial freedom. I want to break those golden handcuffs. How can I get cash flow coming in? And that was the key for me. Was one of my friends was like, well, why don't you keep one of those flips you're doing and put a renter in it? And I'm like, that's genius. Why didn't I think of that? And so, it was, I wish that you need to invest, the investing fairy just waved her wand and tapped me on my head. And all of a sudden I had the whole plan and the knowledge and everything, and I could execute perfectly. But it was several inflection points along the way that I had to learn various lessons on how to maximize my assets, maximize my time and stuff like that. So,
and along that journey, I think it's so cool, the first property, because my first property I bought at 18, same thing, got all this cash, and I was like, oh, awesome. But then you learn a lot over this series of deals that you do and some that don't work out and all of that. So you learned so many lessons and then started to realize that it was a game and you needed to understand the rules of the game, what the strategies are, and how to play the game. Walk me through how you developed your strategy that resulted in 6,500 plus stores, 800 million.
Again, very sliding scale of things, because when we look at success, so if people consider my current portfolio a success, which for me, I'm looking at other people's portfolios going, mine's small. I want that. Right.
Mm.
But, for my success today, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg of all this work that I've been doing for like 20 years plus. So, just know that like people are not an overnight success. There's a lot of work that's happened in there. And so there's twists and turns. And that's one of the cool things about working with a coach and a mentor is they can help you take a beeline through all those twists and turns and get to where they are. That way you can start standing on the shoulder of giants. Okay. So, how did I start developing the framework? It really came about, it evolved over several years. We had our daughter is 12. And about 6 years ago, I started sitting here thinking and going, wow, like I need to start teaching her about money. What does she need to learn? And then we're starting to scale a very sizable portfolio. At some point in time, she's going to inherit this portfolio or part of the portfolio. And she needs to know what we are trying to achieve, what the skills are that are necessary that she needs to master in order to actually steward this portfolio. And I wanted her to be able to, if should something happen and everything goes poof, right? That she could actually take those lessons and learning over the past 20 plus years and actually rebuild herself. So I started documenting my journey. And, I didn't actually land on the game analogy until after I started documenting things. Like, how was I creating money? What were all the strategies I was using there? How was I mastering keeping my money beyond budgeting? We're not talking about, saving $100 here, $50 there. We're talking about how do I keep thousands in my pocket, tens of thousands in my pocket. And these are things normal people can do. Okay. You don't have to own a business. You don't have to have a real estate portfolio. These are just normal things that you can do. Okay. And then what are those principles that we need to master in order to build wealth, right? Because traditional, American narrative, we're taught to go to school, get a good job, get married, buy a house, invest in and save money in our retirement fund. That's totally backwards from creating velocity with your money. So what are those principles? And then, through all this whole journey too, simultaneously, I'm helping several alien family members. And then eventually when they pass, I'm settling their estates. And I saw all these different ways that they were losing wealth along the way that just didn't need to happen. I mean, we're talking over $700,000 in wealth evaporated. You compound that out over 30 years, that's $5.3 million at a 7% return. I would love to have that. Like anybody here would love to have that. And so I'm documenting all this. I'm kind of trying to piece together a framework that I can use to teach my daughter. And then I was like, other people need to have that too. And so when I'm trying to pitch the framework, I had to put it in a language that people understand. I'm like, we all want to know how to play a game, the game of wealth. In this case, it's kind of like Monopoly. Okay, what's the objective? Any game that you're trying to master, you need to know the objective of the game. How do you win? Then you need to know the rules. Okay, like what gets you booted from the game? Like, and you immediately lose. Okay, and then once you kind of understand the objective and the rules, that doesn't mean you're a good player. Right? Now you got to start mastering the strategy in order to win the game. And so that's really what the book Money for Tomorrow, How to Build and Protect Generational Wealth is really truly about, is taking that framework that has evolved over 20 plus years in my investment career and putting it into a digestible framework that anybody can pick up and execute on. No matter if you're new to investing, just starting out, trying to figure out how to get your first $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for your first investment, or if you're a master investor and you're sitting here going, is there more? Can I scale further? Like, how do I prep the next generation. There's a lot of take-home lessons in this book for both investors.
Oh, I love this journey from the practical tactical, which we hear a lot of practical and tactical, but I love it from the sense of you wrote it almost for your daughter, it sounds like. And that breaks it down to 5th grade level, or in her case, even younger than that. But that helps anyone understand. And so people who maybe feel like they are not good with money or they've made mistakes in the past, like this sounds like so simple and approachable for anybody, but it's also fundamental. And we know when we master the fundamentals that it actually propels us to greater heights. And your portfolio is an example of fundamentals work at any size of the business or the portfolio. I would love for you just to frame this, since we're going to dive into it deeper, but how would you define success? So like, what is enough for you and what is success? And like your rules for the game for yourself.
Well, so I think the definition of success lies in the objective, not the rules. And so, if we talk about generational wealth, like the, traditional generational wealth is to have enough money coming in passively to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. And the next generation knows how to do the same. They can steward that. Okay. They're not just executing on a plan that you already built, but they actually know the ins and outs. They know how you built it. If it burns to the ground, they know how to rebuild it. They know how to steward it. Okay. So you break that shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations cycle. Okay. So that is success, globally. But then you ask the question, how do you know what enough is enough? Right? Because your definition of generational wealth, maybe you just need to have like $5 or $10 million coming in. Maybe that's what you want. Somebody else might want $100 million, right? Somebody else might just be like, I'm totally cool with 10,000 passive income a month and I'm good, right? Like, so that we have to now understand what is that emotion that we are trying to achieve. Okay. And the most of the time when I hear people talk about like goal setting and how do you, achieve the objective, they were like, set a goal. Well, that gets people thinking about numbers. Okay. And then they're constantly, when they hit a number, they kick the goalpost. I mean, most of the people that are listening to this podcast are like overachievers. They're building their businesses. They're like me, and you're constantly kick the goalpost. And I was doing the same thing for so many years. And then eventually I hit that inflection point, was like, do I have enough coming in? Because I don't know. Like, I'm kind of scared. And so then a coach asked me one time, said, well, how do you want to feel? I was like, excuse me, how do I want to feel? They're like, yeah, like when when enough is enough, how are you feeling? Like what is the emotion that your portfolio is giving you? And I was like, well, I think if I have for me, it was like 25,000 coming in every month. I was like, I feel pretty good. Like I could conquer the world, I could probably conquer the world in way less. And certainly I could do way more. But then everything past that is, I now have to make a judgment call. Does it actually enhance that emotion, or am I trading my time and attention to achieve something that doesn't actually align with me? And so, yeah, like when we talk about the objective, I think the objective is pretty similar for most people because they're going to quantify the objective. But like, how do you know when enough is enough? You got to figure out what that emotion is. What are you truly after? For me, my adjective, put an adjective to it. For me, I want to feel strong. I want to feel light. Like the light coming in, I want my house to be organized where there's light coming in everywhere. I want to feel light. So I'm always going to I want enough coming in so I can take care of my health. I want enough coming in to where my relationships are light, on how we interact with each other and our family and friends. And I also want to feel strong, right? So, and connected. And so that for me, if I'm hitting those 3 emotions, I feel like that I have kind of won the lottery, and everybody's going to have different adjectives.
I love this so much because I feel like when we talk about freedom, whether you're building a portfolio or you're building a business, we talk about time freedom, money freedom, location freedom. And what happens is we sacrifice our strength, our light, our connection in order to achieve that. And then when we get it, it doesn't feel like we thought it should.
You're kind of like, oh, is this it?
Right.
Is this it? And then you're like, but I'm really good at pushing that emotion away to go get more money,
Mm-hmm.
more deals. But yeah, it really forces you to take a step back and actually sit with, what you currently have. And like, are you able to experience satisfaction?
Yes.
And in our world, I mean, we get dings and bings and stuff all over the place. Like, we're constantly not satisfied because the next ding is going to come up, right?
Mm-hmm. So I love how you've defined what enough is for you and what, like, quote unquote, satisfied looks like for you. And then it sounds like to me, you've also anchored to that in your decision making. You use that as a North Star in your decision making so you don't get yourself into deals or partnerships or things that would dim your feeling strong, feeling light, or feeling connected.
And that is true because so the 3-question framework I usually give people and what I give at the beginning of the book is, now that you have kind of the objective defined, right? We know what generational wealth is. Now we got to define what it is for you. We got to personalize it. So what do you want? Right? And that's where most people come up with tangible numbers. Eventually I get them to dig deeper and like attach it to time freedom, choice freedom, location freedom, impact freedom. Okay. Once we kind of get to the want, what the want truly is, now we got to attach the why or the emotion to it. And a lot of people aren't necessarily good with why. They pick other people's whys. And that's when a few years ago I landed on like, but if we attach the emotion to it, like now we've got a filter, right? Mm-hmm. Just the other day, I had a previous client of mine that I worked with several years ago approach me with an amazing offer, but it was all active. I was going to have to be traveling out to Portland area and Seattle area like once every 2 months. And it was just so amazing. And my previous self would have said yes to that. But I was just like, wait a second, like it's going to deplete me. So I'm not going to feel strong. I'm going to be disconnected from my family. Okay. And I hate traveling on an airplane. I love it. If it's a heck yes for me, I love it. But if it's just like, oh, I got to go back to the Northwest, and I'm sorry, guys. If any of you are from the Northwest, my whole experience with the Northwest has been rain. So like that's not light to me. So, but for somebody else, it is. And so I was just like, thank you, but I don't think this is going to work. So what do you want? Why do you want it? Now, who do you have to become to get it? Mm-hmm. Okay, once you align those first two, and that's where we break this down into like what your mindset is. How do we need to reorient? Okay. And it could be like, stepping in away from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset, stepping away from being a saver or a spender and being a steward. Or, maybe one mindset got you to financial independence, but you want to get to financial freedom and we have to start living in abundance, right? Then what skills do you need? Or better yet, that you can hire into your business. Okay. So we need to frame all that. And then, real estate and business are relationship games. Okay. And then, so what is our network? Okay. I can't attribute the quote to the right person, but our network is our net worth. A lot of people think network is a dirty word, but really all we're doing is having a conversation with somebody if we're doing it right and creating a win-win.
Okay, so let's dive into someone has defined what enough is. And maybe they built their business, but they haven't yet built their portfolio. So let's talk to that person. So maybe they have less than 10 deals, some passive income, but they put most of their energy into their business. How would that person use your framework to disengage themselves from their business and look at their chessboard objectively to say, how can I set this up for generational wealth? I've got a thriving 7-figure business and I've got 10 cash flowing properties. I want more for my family and I want more time freedom. but I feel like I'm being pulled between two worlds.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there because that person probably has really strong business skills that they can easily translate into their personal life. But I think it goes back to, again, with that framework. What do you want? Why do you want it? Who do you have to become to get it? Because there's a reward, there's a dopamine response whenever we're operating and we're getting rewarded in business and the dollars are coming in. But when you drive home, you park in the driveway and you get out, you're not getting paid to be a parent or to be a spouse, right? You're getting paid in relationship currency, but not in actual money. And so that can feel a little like, I used to joke around. I'm like, business is easy. Home life is hard. Okay. So we have to start flipping that script. Okay. So if you understand how you want to feel in your business, that's the first thing is we need to understand how you want to feel in your home life and start peeling back some of the layers of that onion. Okay.
Can we pause and dive deeper on what you just said? Because I think it's super common is people are so good at building their business or so good at building their portfolio and home life feels hard. I think we're living in a world where a lot of people have made that choice. And now we are trying to figure out, okay, we need a more integrated approach. We can't sacrifice the dinner table for the bank account, but we can't sacrifice the bank account for the dinner table. There's got to be a world where we can have both. How do people integrate that?
Yeah, so that is typically not where I spend a wealth of coaching with somebody, but I do love it when I get to coach somebody in this area because really we're zooming back out and one, they again redeploying all those skills that they do in business and bringing it home. What do most business owners do? The first thing they do, they sit down and they cast a vision that 5, 10, 15-year vision. Okay. They cast the vision. Now they got to start working backwards to like, okay, if it's a 15-year vision, where do I need to be on track in 10 years and 5 years and 3 years and 1 year to know that I'm on track for that 15 years. So we bring it all back. And I know I'm rushing this. There's an amazing book called The One Thing that is an amazing read for anybody following this. And so you bring it all back to the 1 year and then you just rip everything off. What do I need to do in this 1 year to be on track for my vision? And I'm going to focus on the areas. For me, I focus on health, my personal development, and spirituality. I kind of like bucket those two together. My relationships, how I'm building my horizontal income. Okay. And then how am I building my vertical income? Okay. That's where my business lives. It lives in, I'm more than just a business owner. I am like, my vertical business lives in 1/6 of me. And that's how we have to treat it. Okay. So health, personal development, spirituality, relationships. Okay. Those 3 balls, if you drop them, they don't bounce. They break. So that is our foundation. It's just like building a financial foundation, like what we talk about in Money for Tomorrow. Okay. We got to build on solid ground. If those 3 balls, your health, your personal development, and spirituality, and your relationships aren't on solid ground, everything else that you're building on top of it, like is wavering. It's either the Leaning Tower of Pisa or it might come down in an earthquake. Who knows which? Okay. Then our horizontal income, our vertical income, and then like how we choose to contribute back, and maybe even a venture. We can throw a 7th bucket in there for some people that are very keen on adventure. Those things bounce. If we drop it, they bounce. They'll recover. Somebody else, we can hire somebody else to pick it back up, right? So we need to, when somebody comes to me that's like that, and I have a current client right now, he's in the process of selling his business for millions of dollars. He wants to redeploy that capital into passive income because he's like, I want to be around my kids. They're almost out of the house. I want to be around them more. Okay. I want to create cherished memories with them. Okay. And we are having a lot of those conversations around how is your health? Like, how are your relationships? How is home life? Let's build these experiences into the journey because it's going to take us 3, 4, 5 years to deploy that capital that you're going to get from the sale of your business. But this has to happen now.
What do you think blocks people If you chose one thing that people would have to unlearn in order to not sacrifice their dinner table for their bank account or vice versa, what would be the one thing?
Ooh, that is an amazing question. And I would love to have the opportunity to sit with this longer, but we're on a short podcast. And so I think a lot of it gets wrapped up into identity. So and I will speak for myself, in my early parts of my investing career, I didn't identify as a real estate investor. I identified as a public health worker. I identified as a mom. I identified as other things other than what I actually was, an educator and an investor. And it was, I spent a lot of money to go to school. I did. Like, why would I call myself anything different? And so, but I had to sit there. And once I started unhooking my identity and how I was trading time in the world, that's when anything became possible to me. That abundance mindset actually flowed pretty easily. But as long as I put that label on myself, gave myself that identity, it was hard. I felt restricted. And so if you're like, I'm the CEO of my business, and you go home and your teenager is handing you your shorts, like we have a 12-year-old right now. She's amazing, and wow, like we are reorienting to our world right now for sure. But yeah,
you were a 12-year-old little girl.
I grew up in a military household, so it was very different. Like, I did not talk this way. I didn't have that freedom to express myself. And here we want to give her that freedom, but sometimes we're like, girl, we gotta rein this back in. Okay, take a breath.
Guardrails.
Yeah. Well, we are doing a lot of boundary work. And I think that's another thing that I find that, especially for women, is that they have chaotic boundaries. They might have certain boundaries in their work or how they work in growing their portfolio, but when they get to home, they're a mom and a wife. And again, that gets tied up into the identity of what we think a mom should be and what a wife should be. And the same thing goes for a male too, but I just have more experiences as a mom and a wife, right? Like, so that's where I can, orient, but creating healthy boundaries, and not only be able to create them for yourself, but to be able to communicate them, your boundaries, your preferences, in a healthy way, to where other people can hear and respond appropriately to that. And then, know how to deal with those people that are just boundary destroyers, that are going to crush your boundaries over and over and over again. Like, hey, no, stop. We're done. Those are a couple of different things that I think really block people from, one, overall success, but also transitioning from business life and being able to do the same thing in their personal life.
For your own personal experience, or it could be somebody you witnessed, I 100% agree with you that identity, getting clear on your identity, is the thing that unlocks so much. And once you are, big things happen. Changes that maybe you have to grieve the loss of certain things, but you also gain so much more. So talking from your personal experience, or again, somebody that you might know, once you got clear on your identity, what shifted in your external world? Like, not your inner world, not like how you think about yourself, not any of that. Like, you're in yourself energy, if you will, and you're clear on your identity, who you are, what you stand for. How did your world start to shift? Because up until then, you were identifying with, I went to school for this. I had student loans, whatever process you went through, you worked so hard to have that one identity. And then you realize that I want to make a shift. I'm ready to become somebody different. And this is the human journey. We all go on this journey. We are raised a certain way. We're conditioned a certain way. We're programmed a certain way. And then we reach a moment where we're like, wait, I think I see my future differently. And I need to reinvent myself. And then we get clarity on our new identity. And so much changes in that moment. And it's not a moment, but so much changes in that transformation, the butterfly, the cocooning, all of that. So I would love to hear your story of it, because I think there's a lot of people who enjoy the spiritual world and sit in the container of maybe woo-woo, manifestation, manifest it into existence. And then there's a whole tribe of people that sit in the container of, if it's up to me, I've got to do it. Nobody cares more about it than me. I'm going to control everything. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to execute. I'm going to get it done. I like to call these two parts of us our alpha and our empathy. Our alpha is the hard charging type A, get it done yesterday. Our empathy is the fairy dust and pray and sit in nature and woo woo. And I personally, for my own self, believe I need both. Like, I'm not either or, I am both. And when I'm too much alpha, I'm an asshole. And if I'm too much empathy, I forget who I am and I get lost and nothing materializes and it's not fulfilling. And so for you, once you got clear on your identity, how did things start unfolding for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, the transition or the journey wasn't so much between like, do I pick the hard charging driven person that I had proven to be like within my career? And now I'm like doing it in real estate. That's exactly what I did. I like took this person that I was in public health and I just like repointed the same person to real estate. Right.
Yes.
And so I had a lot of early successes. I did really well at flipping. I mean, some of those skills, me being able to like keep a contractor on time, keep a project on budget. Boy, hi, we're going to get this sold and we're going to get it sold for top dollar. Like I was hard charging. But how many toes did I crush along the way? I don't know. I really don't know. Probably a lot, maybe not thousands. But I was, again, like what you said, I was doing it all myself. It all like relied on me. And so, the transition and that identity wasn't overnight. It was like point by point. And that's where you have to take what you have that is tangible and translate it to another area. So most people do take who they are currently, that hard charging person, if that's who you are, and you just repoint it to a different industry. In this case, real estate or investing, passive investing. And then that's when you're just like, what don't I know? Mm-hmm. What do I think is true that actually isn't? Mm-hmm. And for me, what I thought was true is I had to do it all myself, and like success wasn't going to come any other way. And that's when I realized that actually wasn't true. I was lying to myself about that. It was all about relationships. And so, which was funny because I was really good at building relationships in my personal life, but I had like big old wall. No, in business, we have no friends. We conquest, right? Have a lot of male energy there. Mm-hmm. And so when I was able to really start kind of understanding that the relationship side of the real estate business, that's when things started coming more naturally. And I also started kind of like living into my true voice. What I did in public health, I loved educating people. That was a huge piece. But because I was so focused on the business side of things, I didn't get to do that a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And whenever I started kind of opening up, picking these pieces of my personality that just weren't serving me anymore and kind of, giving them like Marie Kondo, you give them a nice little hug and you put them up on the shelf and you'd be like, I know where you live. I can come back for you if I want, but I'm going to let my true self shine. That's when I realized, wait, I love coaching people about finances, about how to hit their wealth dreams. Because it wasn't so much as that I didn't realize at first that it wasn't that far of a departure for public health. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, what I teach people, the problem in the world that I'm trying to solve is how to teach people how to be financially capable. Because financial education, there's plenty of it. You can go get it free across the internet. You don't need a book. You don't need to be around a coach. But when you learn how to execute, but become financially capable, now we can solve real health issues, public health issues, right? If somebody is financially capable and they're financially free and that they're living in that abundance mindset, other things are doing well for them too. Their health is better. Their relationships are better. Their kids are prospering from those relationships. There's a ripple effect that's happening there. They're able to give more, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just about the money. Mm-hmm. It's that whole ripple effect. And so that when I starting kind of peeling back the pieces of my personality that were blocking me from sharing that vision or living into that vision, that was the transition for me.
It sounds like the journey of self-awareness too. You have a way of operating and it's producing results for you. Like you had success operating a certain way. And then you still realize that there was an integration of peeling back parts. And then that self-awareness allowed for so much more growth. And now the book and everything else to materialize, which is so amazing. So we could go back to the part about strategy. And I know you have so many insights on strategies all around. Like you said, you could read any book, you could listen to any podcast, but you have a unique take on strategy and how you help people with it. Can you share that?
Yeah. So around personal wealth, right? We have to understand the objectives, the rules, and then I put the strategies in 4 different buckets. Because most people are just like, oh, I make money and I invest it. That's it. Done. No, you actually have to learn how to create money, keep it, right? Because there are so many pressures in this world. Banks are trying to take it away from you. Retirement companies are trying to take it away from Wall Street. Actually, not the retirement company, but actually Wall Street. Taxes. Uncle Sam's trying to take your money away from you. Okay. Hopefully there's a trade there in your area, right? Like we're not going to get political here. But so we got to learn how to create it. We got to learn how to keep it. Then we're in a great position to learn how to grow it because we have a very solid financial foundation there. And then we have to think about what do we need to have in place to pass it on? And it has to go beyond just a will and trust, right? Because how many times is like somebody inherited money in the United States or any country really, and that the heir was completely unprepared to steward that wealth, right? So we have to think about what do we need to have in place today to keep our health from draining our wealth. What happens if we die? Like the actual documents that need to be in place to move our wealth to the next person or the next entity. And then what do we need to have in place as far as communicating our values? Who are the Huttons, right? Like in the case of me, like we have a purpose document with our trust. Like who are the Huttons? How are you training your kids? How are you training your heirs? How are you training your executor, right? So much wealth is lost in just the actual transfer of it. Does your executor know what to do and how to execute on your dreams? And so, and that education shouldn't be saved until when you're on your deathbed. You should be doing that education throughout your whole investment career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to think of it as you're not passing on just money, you're passing on a mindset and a way of being. And when you're teaching your daughter this from the time she's little, I don't have kids, but I think of this with my nieces and nephews. Like if you're starting to teach them when they're young, they're starting to embody it. They're starting to viscerally and somatically experience what the emotions are that you want them to have: strong, connected, light, all of those things. And when they then get to have projects with you where they buy a house and they get to experience that with you, hand holding them, you're really training and educating them through not just what they're watching you do, but what they're seeing you say, and then also what you're hand holding them to experience. So like you said, on your deathbed, it's not like, here you go, run the play. They've been running the play the whole time. And so the transition is so much smoother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really, I mean, you could start off by like reading books to young kids about money. One of my favorites I read to my daughter when she was like 4 or 5 years old was The Richest Man in Babylon. Mm-hmm. And somebody might be going, ooh, that's a little like Shakespearean. And I changed the words around to where she could like understand it. And we told it like a story and she was all enthralled. We played games like Cash Flow for Kids, and now we play Cash Flow and Drive Time. Those are great games. We play Monopoly. Monopoly is amazing. I know the original intent of Monopoly was not to teach about transfer of wealth, but there's some very valuable skills that you learn there. There's another book called From Piggy Banks to Stocks by Myra Corbrick. That's another great book. And there's other like apps out there that you can use, but real world experience. we actually gave our daughter a pool of money to invest. And so initially she invested alongside of us in some of our projects. Okay. But she was immediately hands off. We're like, okay, that didn't work. We had a camper van rental business. She worked in the business. She cleaned, she did customer service. That taught her like the value of work and how to create value. And that is a huge skill that she learned. Now she's like learning how to invest in the stock market. She's super excited. She bought her first 2 shares of Berkshire Hathaway because she loves Squishmallows. And like, how about instead of buying Squishmallows, we buy the company that owns Squishmallows and let the profit from there pay for the next Squishmallow. So,
I love that.
And she was like, oh, that's amazing. She's actually in the process of setting up her own like little body hand cream company. So we actually started off making some chapsticks and like body butter for ourselves, but she's a climber. And so that chalk on your hands can be super drying. And so she would let her friends use it and they all love it. And I'm like, do you think there's a business here? And so now she's thinking about the marketing and like how to get it, people testing it. She knows Brooke Rabbitoux, who is like, got second place in the Olympics. Like, she knows her parents and she knows Brooke. And I was like, if you can get an endorsement from Brooke, like that would be amazing. So we're talking through all these things about marketing. And so she's not just learning how to make money. She's learning all the skills around that you need in order to be an entrepreneur or intrapreneur anywhere.
What I'm really hearing too is that she's learning how to learn. If I could sum up one of the gifts my parents gave me, I think it's 2. They taught me critical thinking and they taught me to fall in love with learning. And falling in love with learning really materializes into resourcefulness. And then it materializes into relationships. And then it materializes into connections and the product and marketing and sales. And there's enthusiasm and there's excitement around it. Whereas if learning is a chore, then the act of learning is the energy we bring to the act of learning is resentful. We're dragging our feet. We don't want to do it. And I think a lot of us were conditioned that way where learning was a chore. It wasn't something that was fun. And what you're doing for your daughter is teaching her that it's fun and her eyes are lighting up and she's excited about it. And there's curiosity instead of reservation. And that is going to allow her to whatever happens with the portfolio, whatever happens with the Fed, whatever happens with the economy, when you are long gone in 100 years, 200 years, that legacy is going to live on. Obviously, your daughter's not going to live to be 100 years, but or maybe she'll live to be 112.
We got some good genes in our family, so you never know.
So I love that. What's something like you've lived your life up until now? You've achieved a lot. You have an amazing daughter, amazing family. You can totally change your mind in the future. But at this moment, what do you most want to be known for?
I think it just somebody who empowered people to make the moves in their life for them to create the life that they desire, that they dream about. I want to be known as a person that empowered people to do that.
Sounds like you're doing it.
Yay. I hope to continue to build upon it because I got a lot more work to do.
Yes, that's the human journey. It's the business journey. It's the human journey. There's always work to be done. And we're also here doing it. So I acknowledge you for that. What are some of your fun projects you have on the horizon right now?
Fun projects. Well, we just wrapped up our summer. We sold our camper van rental business. So we did a lot of like travel that we hadn't been able to really engage in during the summer. Yeah. I'm running my first marathon at the end of the month. So I'm super excited.
Oh my gosh. That has been a lifelong dream of mine. I have not committed to yet.
You should come. No, I actually trained for a high altitude race that happened this last weekend. We ran it, but they ended up having to change the course last minute because part of the road got washed out. So this huge race, it was supposed to be 17 miles and like 55 feet of elevation gain got changed down to 14 miles and 3,000 feet of elevation gain. So almost like felt like half the race. And so I was like, well, I've
It
already
was a lot
trained.
for me still.
Yeah, well, it was still a lot, but I was like, I've already trained. I'm like, am I crazy if I do a marathon? And so I've got that. Yeah, so super excited. A lot of my, goals like in the near future are around continuing to take care of my own personal health. And, just our daughter's in middle school. She's going to be off to high school and out of the house, like really staying focused there. And then just continuing to, as we find deals that are amazing, continuing to invest in the deals and continuing to pour energy into my business and my coaching clients.
I love all of that. I think what I like about it the most is it's so balanced. It's a little bit of you, which is what you described, like your health and your spirituality and the things that you enjoy. It's family, it's business, it's passive investing, it's giving back what you want to be known for. All of it. Mm-hmm. Like you're excited about being what you're becoming and achieving. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, well, I just like moved some big rocks in the past like 6-8 months. And I think maybe people can identify with this. I don't think we give ourselves time to sit in that, celebrate, right? Like you just moved some major rocks. Like I just published a major book, like, and got done with the initial marketing tour that like, we have to like sit in that celebration for a moment, also take a breath and like pick our head up and be like, okay, I went for a season, head down into this book. Where do I need to like pour my energy for like, a few months so I can pick my head back up and maybe write a second book, right? Like if I just went, okay, first book done, when's the next one? Like one, I would be cheating myself out of that celebration too. I'd be cheating whatever my family, like my friends, like everything that I had to push pause on in order just to like move right into the next goal. And I just encourage people, it's okay. Take a breath.
There's so much wisdom in that because we do, as high achievers, we set a goal and then we've already got the second, third, fourth goal set. And so we don't take that pause. We don't celebrate what we've done. We don't even integrate and realize how we've changed, how we've grown and changed. And that takes a moment to pause and self-reflect and solitude and nature and family and be like, okay, what is this next season of my life going to look like? And how can I do it with all this wisdom I just gained in a more integrated, elevated way? I love having a good pause. I took almost 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, at our beach cottage and just stayed there for walking the beach, not doing much. And it was the best pause. It was a long pause, but it was a good pause because it gives you that reset that's like, okay, running a marathon sounds good now. Writing a book sounds good now. And before, that wasn't an alignment for me. So I love it. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me if you're interested in the book Money for Tomorrow, How to Build and Protect Generational Wealth. You can find that on biggerpockets.com. Also on Amazon, if you want to read it in your Kindle. And I think Barnes & Noble, pretty much every major bookseller has that. You can reach out to me directly at ashwealth, ashwealth.com. And then if you're interested in, if you're like, I'm totally dialed, I'm ready to invest, you can reach at me at passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com.
I love that. I look forward to everyone taking good nuggets from this. And thank you for sharing all of your wisdom on your path to achieve what you've achieved in your eyes open world, but also just the joy and connection and lightness that you're also achieving. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for hosting me.
And to everyone listening, I hope that this resonates with your soul, encourages you to keep building your portfolio and building your businesses, and also restoring your dinner tables and taking care of yourself at the same time. Cheers, y'all.